Welcome to The Big Rich Show. This podcast will focus on conversations with friends and acquaintances within the four-wheel drive industry. Many of the people that I will be interviewing, you may know the name, you may know some of the history, but let's get in depth with these people and find out what truly makes them a four-wheel drive enthusiast. So now's the time to sit back, grab a cold one, and enjoy our conversation.
Whether you're crawling the Red Rocks of Moab or hauling your toys to the trail, Maxxis has the tires you can trust for performance and durability. 4 wheels or 2. Maxxis tires are the choice of champions because they know that whether for work or play, for fun or competition, Maxxis tires deliver. Choose Maxxis. Tread victoriously.
Why should you read 4Low Magazine? Because 4Low Magazine is about your lifestyle, the four-wheel drive adventure lifestyle that we all enjoy. Rock crawling, trail riding, event coverage, vehicle builds, and do-it-yourself tech, all in a beautifully presented package. You won't find 4Low on the newsstand rack, so subscribe today and have it delivered to you. Thank you for joining Conversations with Big Rich. Today we have Steve Sasaki. Am I pronouncing that right, Steve?
Yep.
Okay, with PowerTanks. Steve has been an integral part of rock crawling history with his support of many of the teams and drivers and organizations, including my early days at CalRocks. We want to talk to Steve about the beginning, how he got into off-road, where he came from, and then his product, PowerTank. So, Steve, thank you for coming on board, and let's hear your story.
Well, thanks for coming out here. Oh, let's see. I was, mentioning before that I feel like I'm kind of a late bloomer into rock crawling, even though it started in the 90s. Just because a lot of the other guys are talking about how they were jeeping when they were, really young, preteen and teens and high school. And I had some influence from 4x4 because my dad had a 4x4, he had a four-wheel drive Ford truck with a camper on it. And, I look back and I think, you know what, that was like the first Overlander because he built these cabinets in it for food and we put the whole family in it and we camped. That's what we did. We went out camping. And I really liked that whole idea of this rig, this big truck. I mean, to me, it was huge back then, and it had like 31-inch recap off-road tires. But that was my influence, my off-road influence. But as I went along in high school, it was hot rods and not 4x4 at all. And that's what I did. I put motors into like my Camaro and changed 3 speeds to 4 speeds, and I didn't still know a whole lot about gearing and things like that. But that's where it came from. I started, and I actually kept this Camaro that I had in high school all through, well, not all through, but mostly through my college years, and then it went into the Volkswagen Rabbit and things like that. But I remember in high school where I was so into my V8 on my Camaro and getting it to run right or to get more horsepower. I'd try all these different carburetors, and I had this Holley carburetor, and I would mess with different power valves and all these different parts, trying to get it to run just right. And sometimes it would go backwards. I'd mess it up, and I would be working on it till like midnight, and the next day I'd have to go to school, and I would just be daydreaming all day in class about what I was going to do when I got home and started working on that carburetor again. And I got pretty good at changing clutches. I remember I could change a clutch, I think, in a half hour on that. But that was, so I didn't get into 4x4 until way later. I went on a trip through the early Slick Rock. And so the guys that are local around here all know what the Slick Rock Trail was like and is like now, and it's different. It was a lot easier, but My brother had a 4Runner, a first-gen 4Runner. My buddy had a Nissan pickup. And my other brother had a Toyota pickup. And we went through this trail, and I had never done anything like this before. And I remember I get into the stair step, the famous stair step. I thought it was the end of the trail. I thought we were going to turn around, and I wanted to go back to camp and screw around. And my brother got out of his rig, and he started walking up the rocks, and he was just looking. He was scouting for. I didn't know what he was doing, but he was scouting his line. And then we all, one by one, drove up this area that I thought was the end of the trail. You couldn't drive cars up, and that I think is when I got hooked. I thought, this is crazy that a car went up that, and so then I started shopping for a 4x4 after that.
So what area did you grow up in? Did you grow up in this area here?
Yeah, right in the valley. I grew up in Lodi, which is where our shop is, and it was on a farm, little farm, and back then, it was pretty neat because we drove our cars into the driveway or the garage or whatever, and the keys were left in the car, and we didn't know that people locked their front doors in their house. There was no lock or key for the front door back then. That's how it was.
So this area, Stockton, Lodi, Modesto, for those that are familiar with the movie American Graffiti, the shots that were taken of the famous drag race between John Milner and, I forgot the character that Harrison Ford played, but where they went down the farm road and then he wrecked, was just out here. And
was it?
Yeah, it was outside of between Stockton and Modesto somewhere. So when I grew up in the 70s, and I graduated high school in 76, we used to come over here from the Bay Area and try to race people from the valley, because there was always fast cars in the valley.
Yeah.
And you guys out here are having these farm roads and these back highways with no population like it is now.
Yeah.
You guys could really get on it, where growing up in the Bay Area, with all the stoplights and all the people and the traffic.
Yeah, you still see big burnout marks on some of the back roads back here because they're desolate and they're straight, and they're great places to race somebody.
Yeah, and the farm kids that grow up out here, I would hope it's still that way, but they have, whether it's tractors or anything mechanized or with a motor, they get a chance to work on as a youth, and of course that gets them into the hot rods or
diesels now.
Diesels, yes.
I think I see a lot of the kids with diesels now, and I go, how do they afford these diesels? But they'll hop these diesels up.
Yep, that's I love the valley for that kind of reason, is the natural atmosphere out here, and people hot rodding and building stuff on their own in their garage and taking it out, and it's kind of the same thing that all the wheelers eventually turn into.
Yeah.
Whether you buy a brand new JK or a JL or a Gladiator or a TJ, whenever Jeep makes its change, we get a new influx of people coming into the sport, and nobody ever leaves them. I mean, very few ever leave them stock.
That's true. I think one of the reasons that I liked the 4x4 thing was you got to build something. If you liked playing with metal and big tires and gears, you kind of had to gravitate towards this sport, and that's what I liked. I kind of taught myself how to weld, and I borrowed a welder first and played with it, and then I bought my own welder. And a lot of the stuff on my first rig is stuff that I welded with a 110 MIG welder, and it's still on. And you wouldn't want to. They're crappy looking welds, but at least they held. But that was part of the whole sport, was the fab. I guess to me, it's the fabrication. It's the opportunity to figure out how you're going to set up your rig and where you're going to put your lights and how you're going to set your tools up and how you're going to balance everything out when you wheel and you so you just learn a little bit more every time you wheel, about, I've got a weak spot here, or I want to move like for me, it was, I had a lot of weight in the back and I wanted to move my weight towards the front more so I can climb better. Just because I learned from watching other guys build their rigs and how they climbed with different rigs. So that, in any hobby, it's all, I think, a lot about learning. And as long as you're learning new stuff, it's exciting.
And back 20 years ago, everybody was still experimenting.
Yeah, that's true. And
all the innovation, I think most of the innovation for trail wheeling and for buggy builds and that kind of stuff, most of that stuff happened up until about 2006, at least with rock crawling.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's not been a whole lot of innovation. Guys like Jesse Haynes are doing portals and doing some of the crazy stuff, smaller motors, turbos,
right.
really going after the gearing. And then you have the Ultra 4 cars, which have created, they kind of took the rock crawling and the desert racing and molded it together, but had to make everything last through so much abuse that we've gotten innovation. But the true innovation for trail wheeling, what we were doing to our rigs back then, Jeep you got it so you could buy it now.
Yeah, right. Oh yeah, you look at the new features on Jeeps and it's a lot about, well, what did the aftermarket do? Okay, let's take that great idea and we'll incorporate it into the stock vehicle or the Rubicon or whatever. And I kind of look at the Ultra 4 as one of the steps that was after, so the previous step to that was when when ARCA was going around and We Rock, like you were doing We Rock and Colorado, all that stuff, the true rock crawling competitions. And then you see Bondurant coming out with Tiny. That kind of blew my mind. And I think it blew a lot of people's minds where, wow, that's a whole different way of thinking. And it is like the Ultra 4 stuff where you see guys coming out with this stuff and just crazy ideas in Ultra 4 and going, wow, what a cool idea. Really kind of pushing the creativity.
I agree. So when you went to college after high school here in Lodi, I'm assuming, where did you go to college?
I went to San Jose State.
San Jose State. What was your field of study?
It was industrial design. I wanted to design cars.
That makes a lot of sense now that I know all your product.
Yeah. So I was a product designer. I don't know how I got wind of this this major, but it had to do with cars, and that's what I liked. And I didn't really know anything about going to college because no one said, "Hey, you're going to college." I just kind of decided on my own that I was going to go, and I didn't know where, and I kind of decided on this industrial design, and San Jose State was one of the few schools that offered it as a major. So I went out there and really liked that product design part of school. Again, it was kind of like, you're creating things, you're building things, you're using your hands, you're making things better and solving problems, essentially solving problems. So then I went into the bike industry. After that, I actually got out of school and I was really into the model making part of it. Model making is when you design a product, and back in the day, in order to sell your product idea to somebody, you actually made a lifelike model of it, as close to reality as possible. So you can essentially show somebody how it worked, and even though it might be full of air, it could just be a aesthetic model. I was really into that part of it, so I, after school, went straight into a machine shop. I was doing product models in this machine shop, and I really liked it, but it didn't pay very well. I didn't get a chance to do any creative stuff. So I got a chance to work with a bicycle company, and was in the bike industry for 12 years, but always wanted to do my own product. That maybe during the last half of it, I always wanted to do my own product, but I couldn't do anything cycling related because all those ideas were owned by the companies I worked for. That was Giro and Specialized, and that was excellent training for me. I got to learn about marketing and product development to a higher level than you get in school, purchasing, things like that. All the skills that I actually kind of needed to start a business. So I didn't know what product I was going to do. I played with all these different ideas, and the way it normally should happen, I guess, is naturally, where after I went on this wheeling trip with my friends and my brothers, it was like, this is I didn't think, oh, this is the industry that I'm going to design product for. It was like, this is the hobby that I liked, and I really need to get into this. It's super fun, and it's just kind of like what I like. It's outdoors, it's cars, and then the product came out of that, which I think is the way it should be. And the reason that it came about was back, 1997, or actually 1996, when I was wheeling, there was no way to air up a tire except for the first quick air compressor or a homemade system that you made with a York compressor. And because I was wheeling on a Toyota, I had no room for a York. I didn't have the money to buy a $260 quick air. So I knew that I needed to air my tires up because I had chewed up a new set of mud terrains, and I saw this idea from my other brother that wasn't on this trip. I have three brothers, and he's a refrigeration mechanic. So he had the CO2 bottle he carried everywhere, and it was to blow out condensers and to essentially for that. And I wondered if that energy could be used for tires, and so I tried it, and it worked pretty good. I did a lot of research in regulators and tried a lot of different regulators, learned what worked and what didn't work, and I settled on one. And this is not for a product to sell. This is just making my own air system, something that I could afford. So I made one, and it worked pretty good, and I used it for a while. Finally, after probably a year, I thought, this might be a product I can sell. And so I decided, in order to do this, it was a pretty simple business plan, nothing written. It was, let's see, how much money can I afford to invest in myself? And I said, 10 grand. I'll invest 10 grand. I go, if I lose 10 grand, that's not the end of the world. And so that had to, it had to buy my business license and all that stuff. It had to start my inventory and packaging of materials, and it had to start an ad. And my first ad, little 6th page, black and white ad in the back of Four-Wheel and Off-Road. And that's how I started. And back then, they had these answer machines. They had pagers and answer machines.
Drug dealers.
yeah. Thank God for good drug dealers. And so there was a Panasonic answer machine that had this unique feature in that if someone called and left a message, it would automatically call whatever other number you put into it and let you know, or call you. The idea, I guess, was to call you at work or whatever and let you know that someone left a message on your machine. So you knew right away. And so I had it calling my pager number. So the pager would beep on my little, my belt, and I would duck away while I was at work, and I would call my answer machine and get the message. And if I felt I could get away with it, I'd call the potential customer, and I'd talk to them and ask them what they needed. And I guess I was taking orders back then. I can't remember. It's so long ago, but so I started doing that, and the pager started going off more and more. and my boss noticed it. And then he asked me about what was going on. And
Are you a drug dealer?
yeah, kind of. Yeah. So I had to fess up, and I told him I have this little business on the side, and I have this machine that beeps me on my pager. He was okay with it, I guess, for the most part. He said, just, make sure that you're doing your work and don't let it get in your way. And so I kept doing it. Not for a long time, for a little while. But eventually, let's see, I think it took 2 years. I did it for 2 years that way. And it got so busy that I couldn't do the day job and the night business. So, yeah, I was coming home after work, and I was building product till late that night because I needed to build my inventory. And back then, it was like maybe two part numbers. It was either a 10-pounder or a 5-pounder, and you had no options. There were no options.
No cute colors.
No cute colors. In fact, there were no colors. It was silver. It was a raw aluminum bottle. On the weekends I'd go and I'd buy components, and during the day actually I would sneak regulator parts. I would have to take the regulators that I was buying, and I would have to take them apart. And I would have to take some of the parts to the shop at work and use their lathe and cut parts down. So, you sometimes you do what you have to do to run a business, and that's what I had to do, and that's what I did.
The first event I did was the Put Up or Shut Up at Lake Amador in November of 2001, and I had a full-time job at that point up until that event. And as soon as that event was over, and I had taken some time off to put that event on, I walked back in, and I maybe spent like 2 weeks, 3 weeks before Christmas, and I walked in and dropped my keys on the counter. In fact, they were giving me my 1-year pin for the company I worked at the time, and I said, "Here you go, here's my keys." And they were like, "You can't quit, you make too much money." Well, first they said, "You can't quit." And I said, "Did I sign something I didn't know about?" And they were like, no, you just make too much money. And I said, "It's not about how much money I make. It's how I get to live my life." So I handed my keys and I walked out.
And if you were like me, that was pretty damn scary. Same with me. I mean, I had a paycheck that I was getting every week, and I was going to give that up. And I had my first son. He was 4.5 years old, and I had a second son who was less than a year old, and I was quitting my day job. It's just what you do, though, when you feel like it feels right, and it kind of felt right at the time. And so, yeah, to continue the story, I remember I was in the office or one of the conference rooms with my boss, and he was giving me a review, and it was a so-so review. And it's not that I wasn't working hard. I felt I just felt like I might not have been a perfect fit for the company, and so I kind of laid it on him kind of softly. I said, "Well, I'm kind of thinking of leaving. I'm going to pursue this business." I told him, though, I promised him, though, I would finish my projects. I had a couple of projects, big projects I was working on. I said, "I'll stay and I'll finish these projects, and then I'm moving on." So I stayed for 2 more months, and I finished my projects for him. But the big mistake, and this is probably my biggest first business lesson, was I shut off my ad because I said, well, I can't do both, right? It was too much to do both. So I'll shut the ad off now, and that'll curb those calls. And then I'll make sure that as soon as I leave the company, the ads will happen. It'll start up again. So what happens is there's a lag time. So the calls did stop or slow down. And then when I walked out of the office for the last time, and then the ad turned back on, no one called still because there's a lag time. And now I'm sitting there, we're going to buy a house. We have 2 little kids, and we're moving back to a different town, and and I have no job. And my business is dead. Essentially, it was dead. So that was pretty scary. I was looking back then, you look for a job in the classified in the back of the newspaper, and where I was moving, there was no industrial design jobs. It didn't exist. Oh, that's all Silicon Valley stuff. And so I thought about all these other things I could do, I mean, but the calls started to roll in slowly, and it just, slowly just started to come back. And, but I had, I tell people I had a lot of breaks. I had a lot of lucky breaks. And one of them was, I lived in California, which is the same state as the magazine. So back then it was all, Prime Media. It was all Southern California, which was not that close, but it was still California. I had a lot more access to them than some business in the East Coast. And it just so happened that my ad rep, Brian Cox, was a Toyota guy. He knew I was a Toyota guy, and he was told by Cole Quinnell, who started the first Ultimate Adventure, to invite some people to the first Ultimate Adventure. And Brian invited me, and he kind of told me about what it was, and I thought it'd be a great opportunity to promote the business. I had just built my 4Runner at that point. I think it still had white fenders and a black door because I rolled it, and I had to get reskin the door. But I went on that trip, and in that trip, then you meet, hopefully a lot of your listeners are from the good old days, met John Kappa and Christian Hazel and Rick Payway and Cole Quinnell. Before that, I don't think they knew who I was, nor did they know what a PowerTank was. And so that really gave me a chance to, be with them for a whole week during this whole adventure. And you get pretty close with people when you're trying to survive day after day, on this ultimate adventure. And back then it was zero corporate, it was just us wheeling and driving and then wheeling and driving. And it was a lot of fun. But I think it really gave me a break. They, I think, got a little more interested in PowerTank, and they liked it. We got some product to them, and they liked it. So that was my first, probably one of my first big breaks. And another one was that my first dealer, my very, very first dealer, was Pat Gramillion from Premier Power Welder. He probably had more clout of anybody outside the magazine industry, or, in the industry. He probably had one of the biggest businesses, which was the welder thing. And so he was my first dealer, and he then, I think, gave my brand a lot of clout. If Pat liked it, there's got to be something to it, I think.
Yeah, the club.
Yeah, he was in the club, club, right? Yep. Who was in that club?
Frank Curry.
Okay.
And the guys out of, they were the farmers, Joel Randall.
Harold Off.
And then also John Wagner, who competed with John Curry.
Mm-hmm.
So that was that whole group.
Yeah, the first guys in ARCA. I mean, some of the first guys in ARCA. So otherwise, who would have taken the time to meet this Asian kid with this cockamamie idea for an air system in an industry that just was kind of out of his realm, and so that, again, I mean, I had these lucky breaks along the way. So yeah, I mean, without that, I'd probably be doing something else today.
So when did you go from the silver tank to starting to paint and identify?
It was soon after that, probably within the third or fourth year. The very first magazine feature article I got was Trent Riddle was with Sport Utility magazine, and he called me up and he said, "Hey, I'm going to be out in your area doing something, and I wanted to see if I can swing by," because I think at that time I was maybe advertising in Sport Utility, and that was a great book. He asked if he can come by the factory, get a tour, do and yeah, do a feature, an article on PowerTank. And I didn't say anything. I just kind of chuckled and I said, yeah, I'll give you the tour. Come on by. I didn't know what he was going to think when he came to my garage, because I had a 2-car garage with this big, heavy, rickety plywood door that opened up, and that was PowerTank, you know. I really didn't care. I mean, I said, it wasn't that big of a deal, right? PowerTank. So he came by, and it turned out he was really, really cool with it. He said, I started a business in a garage just like this, and he really could sympathize with me, you know, the hardships and stuff, and trying to start a business. And so he was really cool, and he took some good photos. And I remember I still had silver bottles, because we went out and we did some tests, and I still remember the photograph that was in that 1-page article, and it was the silver bottles. And that was still in San Jose, so that was within the first 2 years. So soon after that, I went into the first colored bottle, which was the dark blue. And I still see those blue bottles
I
come
still
through.
have mine from
Oh, really?
2001.
Really?
Yeah, it rides in the XJ. It's ridden in a lot of vehicles.
Oh, that thing's probably
It's
been
drug
rehydrated a few times.
It's been across the... you know what? I had never had a problem filling those up, getting them... Not like you do with propane tanks, where they make you go through every so many years and do it. I've never had anybody ever say anything about them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and you know, I got the 2 big yellow ones, and Little Rich has one of them. But you know, I've never had anybody say that needed testing.
You know, these bottles they're pretty bomb-proof, and you know, we only use the ones that are from U.S. makers, and the valves are U.S. made, and they're pretty bomb. In fact, that's why we decided to give them lifetime warranties. If you ever fail a test, we'll give you a brand new bottle. That's how confident we are that you're going to pass the test over and over, years from now, decades from now. You know, and we are into our we're into our 3rd decade in business.
Mine are 20. I would say the blue bottle is 20 years old. Yeah, at least. Yeah. So when did the expansion of the product line? I know that you moved from San Jose.
Yep.
And you moved back up here to Lodi in the valley. Yeah, we got into a house in Elk Grove. Man, it was crazy. We had this little tiny house. I think it was like a under 1,200 square foot house in San Jose, and with that 2-car garage where I had PowerTank. And we decided to move to the valley. We were looking at these huge houses that, I mean, everybody had huge houses out here, right? 2,700 square foot, 3,000 square foot homes, 2-story, and they were 2/3 the cost of the house, of the price of the house we were going to sell in San Jose. So that's another reason I was able to start the business, is that's where my initial funding came from. Was, all right, we sell the house, we sell an 1,100 square foot house, we buy a 2,700 square foot house, and we still had $100,000 in cash. Nice. Well, not cash, because we hadn't had the other house fully purchased yet, but we had cash, and so I took that, and that's what I started the business with, and you know, just crossed my fingers. I mean, every day crossed my fingers, and you know that to some degree the crossing your fingers never ends. Yeah, yes, I know. Yeah, your business can go in an instant. Some stupid little thing can happen, or it doesn't take much to crumble down a business, and our business is still pretty small in relative terms. So you know, you always have to play things certain ways, safe or less safe. You have to know where to take risk and not to take risk. It's good that you learned that lesson didn't affect where you're at now, and that was, you know, you have to keep advertising. There's so many businesses I hear that I talk to that say, oh yeah, we're not going to do any advertising. Mm-hmm. You know, we got to cut costs. We don't have as much money coming in because of, the housing slowdown or whatever. Well, those companies that cut their advertising cut their lifeblood.
Yeah.
And if you don't have potential customers seeing you, you're relying on word of mouth by Joe telling Steve, hey, you need to buy PowerTank because I don't want you using all mine.
There was a time when for a lot of years I was trying to figure out this whole advertising game. Okay, so do we bump the ad size up? Do we go full color? Do we go into more magazines? What is the secret formula? And no one could tell me what the secret formula was because no one knew. But we at least I knew that we had to advertise. We had to keep the advertising going. And part of it was probably the lesson I learned when we were in our very first ad, when I shut it down for 1 month or 2 months, and the faucet dried up. And we only had that one ad in. It was the biggest off-road magazine, but it was a tiny ad, and it just stopped. And as we moved along, we did try different things. In the 800 phone number era, it was suggested that we have multiple 800 numbers, and each magazine got a different 800 number, so you can kind of track what ads were bringing the calls in. And that was pretty much all we could do. It was very unscientific. So, but we did it. Our relationships with, the magazine guys, Kappa and Hazel and Riddle and Payway helped a lot too. They would do. I remember doing a tire test or a shock test, and they would actually change tires and shocks in the field on some slope or something, and they'd make sure that the PowerTank was in the picture, showing that they're using an impact wrench to do all the work. They didn't mention PowerTank, but just having it in the photo, I think, helped us.
Absolutely. Yeah, that product placement is important. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you left San Jose, you moved up here. You were
Elk Grove.
Elk Grove.
Mm-hmm.
When did you move out to your dad's shop? Because that's the place I remember.
Okay, so we moved to Elk Grove, and we moved into this house that had a 3-car garage. And there was a downstairs bedroom right by the garage door, and so that was really cool. I really liked that. I mean, you always think, would you ever want to start a business, never see anybody during the day like you did when you were working at the big corporation, and you are taking calls, taking orders, and you're doing the production all out of your house, and it sounds kind of like prison, and I didn't know how I was going to deal with it, but it turned out it was really cool. You just wake up and you walk downstairs and you grab a coffee and you turn the computer on and you just start work, and I actually liked it a lot. I did that out of my garage for 2 years, and the homeowner association didn't like that. I mean, you're not allowed to have a business, and there were a few of us, because I talked to the UPS driver, there were a few of us that had businesses running out of our garage. Eventually, one of my neighbors, we had one of those Mrs. Kravitz neighbors that narked on us to the HOA, and we were given that fine in the letter, and so we had to move out. So again, I mean, the business still wasn't big enough to afford rent in a industrial spot. So I took a spot out of my dad's property in his business shop, and it was probably 800 square feet, I think. And I carved a little section out, and I offered to pay them rent and the utility that I was using, and I ran my phone lines into there, and that was my new PowerTank for corporate office. It was a 10 by 10 office that I built inside his shop, and I made a little assembly area that was kind of a cube. I really get into these efficiency studies where it's all about how fast I can build stuff and how efficiently I can build stuff. And I had this cube where I could kind of almost reach everything: tape guns, boxes, product without taking more than maybe 4 steps. And that's then how I ran the business. That was kind of the next phase. Was you get into work, you check your messages, you start to take the phone calls, and you start to process orders. And at that time, my order invoice was just something I made on Excel. You try to get as many orders. Well, back then there were not that many, so you get them done in time to get them on the UPS truck, because that UPS, he honks every time before he backs up, and you got to be there with your boxes and your labels done. And then back then all we used was one shipper, which was UPS. And as soon as he's gone, then you start building product for the next day. And again, I mean, I had to keep the number of products down to, like, I don't know, a handful, maybe 5 or 6 part numbers. So then that was the first of expanding the product line. What was it? I think it was still one color bottle, but I think there were 3 sizes then. And then in between that, you're running to vendors to get parts welded, and you're picking up parts at the vendors, and you're receiving bottles, and you're receiving all these things from different suppliers, and it's really, it keeps you busy. And then I hired my first employee there, and it was a kid that I still know. He's not a kid anymore, but sharp kid, Adam, and he helped me kind of build the business a little more, because he was my first assembler. And and let's see, I was there at that location, which was, as you remember, it was surrounded by orchards. It was back then it might have been cherries, or I don't know what it was, but because the different crops were around, and it was just surrounded by acreage of agriculture. But eventually I needed more space, so I then rented my first 2,000 square foot industrial spot in Lodi, and I bought my first pallet racks. You have your own office and bathroom, and you're getting serious now, And I had my first real manager. He really was good. Bob was really good at running the business, and in some ways he knew how to run the business in a lot of the aspects of the business better than I did. Very sharp on the accounting side and setting rules and things.
Well, I can tell you that I know for a fact that's important.
Yeah, you got to have somebody you can trust, and somebody that kind of has your best interests at heart, because then you can trust them.
Correct.
And I could, and so that helped me a lot. And he was with me for a lot of years. And then we needed more space again. So from that 2,000 square foot place, we got into a 4,000 square foot place. And it's, 4,000 square feet. That's still pretty tiny, and that's what we're in now. Along the way, I was working with. You kind of learn that your skills in certain areas of a business as it starts to grow are tapped, and a lot of my skills in business were tapped a long time ago. And so fortunately I had friends that were much smarter than me than say like logistics and software and things like that, and accounting. And I got them to consult for me. And, then just taught me a lot more to try to get it to the next level. And I remember I was with one of these guys, my buddy Ron, super sharp guy on just operations of a business. and we would, we'd pop a beer at the end of the day, and we'd look around the warehouse, and we'd kind of estimate what we thought we could output as far as revenue out of the space we were in, and we'd throw out these numbers. We are actually outputting double the numbers we thought we could. I don't know how we were so far off, but you do what you have to do, and you squeeze things into spaces that you swear are too small for that, for that pallet or whatever, and you try to improve your production as much as you can, and all those little things help, And then you tell Steve, the idiot that keeps designing too many products, so you got to slow down, and we can't bring that one out yet, and we need, in fact, cut back on some of the part numbers to simplify things. And so, there again, sometimes you need some outside voices to come in and say, "Hey, you're going off track here," and otherwise you won't see you're going off track.
I think all small businesses have gone through those phases. I know I have with the events, and luckily, meeting Shelley and her being a CPA and chief financial officer and all accountant type thing, she was really good at going, no, you don't need to do this. No, you don't need to do that.
Right.
You're going to start over with this. And we cleaned the slate after 2009.
They have such a clearer picture.
Yeah, because she had no conceivable idea of what I was doing anyway.
Yeah.
And she couldn't understand why somebody, a company would go, here's some money, go ahead and put your event on. She didn't understand how that would work, until she got out there and started doing it. And then she was like, oh, okay, now we're not going to let you discount it anymore. Because
right.
I would go from month to month and go, I got to find another $5,000. Who am I going to get that from? I got to pay these bills or I'm out of business. And so, I would call somebody up and go, hey, this is our normal package. I'll do it for half that, And she just went, nope, no more.
Well, see, that's where my son Tyler came in. He said, you don't have to do that. You're giving away too much. When you sit, I guess, in your chair and my chair, it's easier to do that. And you don't see, if you're not seeing the big numbers picture as clear as, Shelley probably was, you don't see the effects. And so, yeah, it's, again, it's good to have that outside, more expert person to say, hey, this we need to change this.
Yeah, we went the year she came on board as my partner. We truly, we didn't even have merchandise. We didn't even sell T-shirts or anything because we couldn't afford them. It was like, before I was like, I got to have this, and I just did whatever I had to do to try to make it work. And then at the end of the year, it was like, okay, what do I do for the next 5 months till the next event comes?
Yeah, right.
Okay, we got to make our season longer
right.
so that I can keep going,
Yeah.
Kind of the things that I got into, and she changed all that.
It's easy to get stuck with what's right in front of you. And it's easy to, that's like when I get my desk starts to get cluttered. I sometimes I have to step back and clean the desk up. And then it kind of clears out my future, my glasses, so I can see further into the future. And you have to, I don't know, for me, I have to kind of force myself to do that. It's good, and you got to clean up the desk once in a while.
So your son has come on board. He's the one that had you eliminate a lot of those SKUs and parts.
Yep. And he kind of cleared. He got us back on. He kind of tightened the wheels of the train. We were going down the track, but the wheels were kind of loose, and he tightened the wheels up. And one of the things that he noticed was that when you kind of imagine this loose wheel, it's like those are the mistakes. Those are the 1,000 little mistakes that can kill you. Customer calls or 10 customers call, and each one has a little mistake in their order, and so you don't think about it, but all those things cost money and time, and by cleaning that up, you're more efficient. You're tightening the wheels up, and he could see. I guess I didn't know how to tighten the wheels up. He saw how we needed to do that, and he said, "We need an inventory software. We need to get a better handle on the product, the money, the product, and where it's going, how it's being packed, how it's being controlled when it gets into a box, that kind of stuff." In bigger businesses, that's business 101 for them, but for us, we're still having to learn that. And not only that, it's like, well, how do you afford to do that? That stuff that kind of software is really expensive. So he did all the research and got that functioning. And it was there again. That's a good example of where that was way above my head. That software stuff, the computer stuff. But that's the stuff that he's good at. So that was one of the big steps that he made here to really get us smooth out the ride. And whenever your ride's smooth, you're running much more efficiently. And then on the advertising side too, he's got the time now to do the photography correctly and to do the write the instructions. He's a good writer, and so and his major was communication, and that's what marketing is just communication. How do you communicate? I knew the product, but it doesn't mean you can sell the product. You have to communicate to the customer what it is, what it does, why they need it. I thought I was good at it, but I wasn't. I need way too many words, and that's what it was always wrong with my ads. It was full of words, and everybody used to tell me that. And I don't know if you know Danny Adair, but he was one of the first people to tell me that. He goes, you got too many words in here. He goes, I can't fit it in the ad. And he helped me to just clarify what the message should be, and all it took was this to send the message. And it took me a long time to get used to that. I knew he was right. I guess when they say engineers should never be the ad guy, that's why,
So true. We all have our skill set. I look at especially our industry, well, because I've been in it for so long, but we've always said that our industry is probably 10 or 15 years behind most industries, and that even though we look at how great and how big our industry is, it's tiny compared to most.
Yeah.
And the smaller homemade mom and pop type businesses like yours and mine and all these fabricators out there and guys that have their own shops, they're trying to wear all the hats. But then you get the companies that have all the layers, and you have an engineer, you have a salesperson, you have somebody that's that is shipping or whatever,
right? Or
like in the magazine industry, you have the content creators, you had the ad sales, and then all those magazines in the past were all bought up, by investment firms, and all of a sudden they got all these layers above the content creators.
Yeah.
And that hurts a company just as well.
Yeah.
So there's that fine line between, too big, even if you're small, you get too big, you can't keep up.
Yeah.
And you're afraid to a lot of companies are afraid to invest in keeping up.
Yep.
So you scale back, or you stay there, or you throw your hands up.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty common conversation that all business people have, especially small business, because we're all trying to help each other. We're all trying to learn from each other. And you talk about you look at the companies that just grew overnight and became something huge, and then you look at your own business and you wonder, well, isn't that what I should do, or is that what I should do, or what are the pros and cons of not doing that? And one of the things that my buddy Ron told me was, he explained what a lifestyle business was, and he said, that's what you have, and this is what it means. And because I always thought my goal was to sell to Home Depot or to sell to with my construction line, because again, the off-road business or industry is small compared to the construction market, and we had a line of product for construction. And he kind of pulled the reins on me, and he said, are you sure you want to do this? He goes, let me illustrate what you are becoming and what your business becomes if you go down that route. And he's saying, I'm not saying that you don't do that. He's saying, he goes, he knew that I didn't understand what that meant, selling to big WD distributors and to Home Depots and Lowe's and becoming that kind of business. So once he explained that to me, and he kind of showed me the advantages of staying kind of where we're at, growing a little by at a time, and as long as we're happy and we're doing well for the employees, then there's something to that. The thing that mattered to me, I guess, was I want to be able to design product and get it out fast. And the bigger the business, the harder it was going to be to do that. We also wanted to make sure that the business didn't grow so fast that it got out of my control. And if it did, then it could just kill us. What was going to happen to our product support and customer service? Would I have to just rent the next building so that I could hire a bunch of, a bank of customer service people? And how do you train that person or those people? And that then didn't appeal to me. That kind of business didn't appeal to me. It's super important to make sure that we maintain the level of quality that we have on our product, and that we take care of the customer like the old days, essentially. I mean, that's kind of how I think it's going now. It's like more and more you call to get customer service on something, and it's either you can't do it because they don't have a phone line. You can only fill out an email, or it's just return it to Amazon, or and if it's a technical product, it's difficult to get that technical knowledge from the company, and so I guess we're kind of old school still.
But not everybody in our industry appreciates that, meaning the enthusiasts, the people out there that are mostly buying your product, the guys that are now buying JKs or have bought JKs or JLs, and they're modifying the rigs and they're going out, or the guys in the pickup trucks, that kind of thing, that are using their vehicles and where they have to air down, air up, have air tools with them. A lot of those people are more to that Wall Street, I'm going to buy through Amazon. Or I'm going to buy, through Trans or somebody like that doesn't have. There is no customer service. There's a guy that's going to sell it to you, and then you got to try to get that same guy to help you when something goes wrong. Yeah. Where if they call a Main Street company instead of a Wall Street company like yours, or a lot of our people that are in our industry that haven't gone, to that create to where they can make enough products so the WDs are happy. You cut your margin, you increase the quantity that you sell, not the quality. You lose that customer, that touch with the customer. That's why I'm in this business, is or in this off-road industry, is because of the customer, because of our teams, our spectators, which are your customers. Those relationships to me are important. If I was working for a WD, it wouldn't. Those relationships don't mean anything. It's when that phone rings the next time.
And I start to wonder what's happening with the WDs. Is that, what is the future for WDs, and is it, I don't know. business is changing fast. Amazon's really changing things, and we do sell through Amazon, but we still take care of those Amazon customers. We technically, if they bought it through Amazon, they're an Amazon customer, and we are Amazon's customer too. I mean, but we know that that's frustrating for a customer, and so we just take care of the stuff. I mean, it's easier. In fact, in the end, it's easier for us to just do it that way. We're lucky that we can afford to do that. You have to start to look at things, versus time. It's what's the cost versus time, what's the cost versus bad press, what's the cost versus that kind of stuff. And to us, it's just if a customer's complaining about one of our products, and usually we don't get a whole lot of that, but when we do, and it turns out they bought the stuff through Amazon, we don't like to tell them, hey, you have to go through Amazon. It's what is it? What do you need? Let's get it taken care of. It's not a postage stamp. It's a UPS label that we pay for, plus the product, but it's out of our hair, and that customer's taken care of, and we move on. And it's all about just moving forward. Those things they stop you. Those things you and hopefully, and if you fight with the customer, you're going backwards, and you're losing ground. So to us, it's just take care of it quick. Take care of that issue as quick as you can, because then it allows us to put it aside and move forward. Keep moving forward. And in the end, I mean, that's good. That's better for the customer.
So, with talking about moving forward, where do you see PowerTank in 10 years? Do you have an idea? Do you have a game plan? Is there
is there
products online, or what's the newest greatest widget?
That's probably as tough a question as it was 10 years ago. Probably more so, because I'm 59 now. And I'm not going to be there.
You're
here
still a young
at 69. Kid. Yeah, right. Yeah. No, we're the same age.
Pretty close.
And hopefully, I'm not driving the Dodge with the trailer to Moab in 10 years from now. I don't know. God, I don't even know. I don't really have a super clear picture of what PowerTank is in 5 years. I think it's gotten to a point where the product category is strong enough where it'll live on, and it's got enough momentum where that's not the issue, and the brand has a lot of momentum. So if it's not me that's running it, it's whoever's running it. The product and the as long as nothing drastic happens or something stupid happens, the momentum will keep the brand and the product going. Yeah, and it's been a long run. Shoot, 1997 was the first. June 1997 was when my first ad came out in four-wheel and off-road. So I consider that the start of the business. It's been pretty fun, pretty interesting. Got to do it. How can you complain when you look outside and you got your first 4Runner that you ever you started the business with, and it's nice and clean and shiny, and you got and you're still wheeling it. No matter how many
times you've painted it.
Yeah, 5 times, man. Twice by me.
Good job.
Yeah, and yeah, so that tells you something too. So by the third paint job, I had enough money where I could pay somebody else to paint it.
There you go.
and there's a truck out there and a new JL that you can wheel, and you get invited to events, and you hang out with guys like you and other guys that we both know. We've known for years. We only see each other, for me, sometimes once a year. They're good times, See them at Pomona, see them at Moab. and do something you like to do, wheel out in the wilderness.
Do you still get a chance to wheel?
Yeah, it's. I was just out at doing the Forward Ice with the Rockstar guys, and if you that's actually on YouTube now.
Excellent.
And that was a great trip. We actually did that through the rain. Even the events, like we're going to start doing whenever everything opens. We're going to start doing the overland events, and that'll be kind of a new market for us. So, again, when you're running a business, when you do the same thing over and over, it can get boring. Well, for a product designer especially. So getting into a new market is more excitement, for me, for everybody, I think. You learn about a different group of people, a whole new market, and their needs, and typically you're adjusting the product, or you're actually creating new product for the new market, things that you never needed for a rock crawler, but these overlanders, they're wheeling, they're off-road in a different way.
Figure out how to power their showers.
Yeah, well, I already know. I mean, yeah, I saw that big old black tube water thing that they have, and and they pressurize that with compressed air so that they get some water pressure, and but they air their tires down. I mean, the guys that are really going off road, and they want,
and those that are just sitting in the campgrounds, you're going to have to make sure you get the patches.
Yeah,
so they can put them on their ceilings.
We did. We do have PowerTank patches with Velcro on the back now.
Excellent.
So yeah, we're learning the off-road market. We're learning, and so that's what kind of got me thinking about my dad's old Ford 4x4 with a camper shell on it. I mean, he built our house that my mom still lives in. So he was pretty handy, and he's a refrigeration mechanic. So he built all the benches. I remember the plywood benches and the storage cabinets inside the camper. Back then, no seat belts, and we had a pass-through rear window that was kind of sealed off with this vinyl boot. Yeah. And so we were, as little kids, we would we get passed back and forth between the cab and the camper at whenever we wanted to while we were driving on the freeway
with no seatbelts.
No seatbelt, no. And he would go down trails and find spots to camp, and we'd fish in the stream, and we would. Back then, I think we were even. I don't even know if we took water. We just probably got water out of the stream. No filters or anything. That's another subject I don't want to get into, which is why all the kids nowadays get sick, because they're never exposed to any germs.
Correct. It's hard to do that in the basement.
You're right. Yeah, exactly. But
I'm showing my age.
So we and he had I remember he had a 22 handgun. So we'd shoot all the stuff we like to do now, and so that's where I got it from, and that was we were overlanding.
That's awesome. So is there anything that we haven't touched on in this interview that you'd like to share? Is there any? I know, just looking at your tank selection, the colors, the new green tank that you have, the limited run, I guess, is gorgeous. So if anybody out there is looking for like a safety green lime.
Oh, when this comes out, it may be gone.
Yeah, probably will be.
Because it's
as
limited.
Soon as people see it, they're going to be hounding for it.
But we'll be on to the next limited edition color.
There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect. So everybody, if you need your air up tires, if you need to air down, air up, anything that you need product wise for
air
delivery,
tools.
air tools, look at PowerTank. PowerTank's a great company. It's Main Street. Steve's a great guy. The people that work for him are excellent, customer service outstanding. He has helped out and been in the industry for so long. We were talking about the hoods and panels that he's got out here in the shop from Jeff Mello and Jody Everding and Dustin Webster and Waylon Campbell, and then the pictures that are up here with Matt Peterson and Jesse Combs, and oh my God, you even got Greg Mulkey's Jeep up there.
Yeah, right.
And
Signed.
Nicole Johnson.
Signed.
I mean, how long ago was that? Nicole, if you hear this,
Yeah.
I know that you're not in off-road anymore, but Steve's got you on the wall. And you just look around, and there's the Campbell clan and Overlanders, and well, that's a cool picture right there. But it's a great place, great company, and people, you need to purchase an air tank. That's all there is to it. I mean, I got some product while I was here, and it's great stuff. Wouldn't leave home without it.
That's appreciated. Business is doing well, and I think we were one of the lucky ones through this COVID thing too. I mean, people were just ordering like crazy. I think they were staring at their Jeeps. They couldn't do anything but build stuff, and they can't explain it any other way. They were just, they were ordering off the hook. We've been busy.
That's excellent. Well, Steve, thank you for taking the time this evening.
Thank you, Rich.
And showing us around and giving us a shop tour.
That's fun.
And sitting down and talking with us for over an hour of your time, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
Okay, good luck in the future.
Thanks.
If you enjoy these podcasts, please give us a rating. Share some feedback with us via Facebook or Instagram, and share our link among your friends who might be like-minded. Well, that brings this episode to an end. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll catch you next week with Conversations with Big Rich. Thank you very much.